Chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I have a very outstanding and masterful chess game that I played against RedFish, the new chess engine with a performance rating of over 4000 Elo. This game is crucial and full of genius because I sacrificed my pieces with the flair of Mikhail. I will illustrate the chess tactics and strategies I employed in this game. So, let's get started without wasting any time. I started the game with c4, instead of playing e5 or e6, black just copied me. When the knight goes to f3 to prepare for the move d4, he copied me again, and I played g3 with the idea of considering bishop g2 to control the center square, where my knight can dominate and maneuver effectively. Once again, RedFish copied me. Hey, RedFish, are you cheating by sitting behind me in the exam room? Because in this position, you could go with g5, but instead, he played b6, developing the knight's square diagonal. After bishop g2 and bishop g7, both bishops are looking at each other through a telescope from the mountain, but the advantage for black is that his bishop's diagonal is open, whereas mine is not yet. That's why I castled, and a few moves later, when the bishop moved to e7, RedFish seemed to want to consider king g8 to d5, or d6, so far so good. All these moves are playable in a tournament chess event. Rook e1 followed in the game to emphasize the move e4. Now, black can actually consider d5, which is very prophylactic and adventurous because after the exchanges, I need to consider d4, the center pawn will be traded soon, and I will have only one center pawn left. Black can dominate the center with that plan and approach, but instead of d5, he played d6, making his center both defensive and aggressive. We have e4, a6 and d4, immediately breaking the center. Playing castle or knight c6 might seem like a reasonable move for future players, but doing so would be a very bad mistake because I would immediately consider d5 to advance my structure. After the exchanges, the rook file will be open, and you will have a small, vulnerable center structure. Going back to the position, we have c takes d4, and after the knight captures the pawn, my knight gains control of the center, but it's hard for him to dominate it. Now, with knight c6, what does RedFish want to consider? Knight c6, castle, or queen c7. If you dare to consider e5, that move would be nonsense because I can play knight f5, putting pressure on the pieces. After castling and bishop g5, h6 is not possible because I can exchange pieces on f6 and then capture the d6 pawn. So, a few moves ago, we discovered that h6 is not possible, and many players might think of playing knight c6, but it's a very passive-looking move because there is a hidden tactic. I can play knight to d5, and it's a very tricky move because after you capture the knight and the exchange occurs, your knight will be under attack by my pawn. Additionally, your dark squared bishop will be under attack at the same time. The position will be very disrupted and weak for you. So, going back to the current position, we discovered that playing e5 is a very bad choice. That's why we have queen to c7, because the f5 square needs to be protected by the pawn. After bishop e3, putting pressure on the pawn, when you see that the c4 pawn is under attack, you may be tempted to capture it, but let me show you what will happen if you capture the pawn. Then I will consider rook to c1, gaining access to the open file. Now, playing castle would be a very bad choice because knight to d5 can target both the queen and the bishop simultaneously with a check. That's why you need to consider queen to b4 to escape this attack. Then I will consider a3, and your queen becomes very trapped, with no good escape route. That's why she has to capture the pawn. After e5, attacking both the knight and your bishop simultaneously, the best move for black is to capture the bishop on g2, but that doesn't matter because after the exchange, the position may seem equal, and black may seem to have defended well, but then a twist and game-changing move will arrive. Knight to a4. Attacking the queen, which becomes paralyzed and trapped. After capturing the pawn, rook to c8 check will follow, putting black in a difficult position. After bishop d8, I will make a brilliant move. Can you guess what it will be? It's not king takes bishop, of course. The move is knight takes e6, attacking the bishop on d8 with 2 pieces, so, you have to capture my knight. If you didn't find that brilliant move, don't worry, I'm giving you another chance to find my next brilliant move. Try to pause the video here and figure it out. Many players might think of queen to h5 check, but it's not possible because of g6, there will be no advantage. The best move is to use the genius of your brain, bishop to c5. Bishop c5 gives no chances for black to defend his position. Firstly, these pawns are under attack, and also, by playing bishop c5, your queen is under attack, therefore, you have to manage the bishop problem first, otherwise, you will lose the queen. When you capture it, I can consider queen takes d6, threatening to consider rook takes e6, what will you do? There is no way to stop checkmate, even if you consider bishop h3, I can capture the pawn, and after the exchanges you can see that the game will end in checkmate, you will lose the game at my hands. I can destroy RedFish with my brutal strategy and make him red with defeat. So, going back to the position, we discovered that capturing the pawn on c4 is a very bad choice. Therefore, RedFish played knight d7, and a few moves later, I played f4 to establish a strong center. Again, you cannot capture the pawn because of knight d5, which will create pressure on the queen and the bishop simultaneously. That's why, after rook c8, noticing that the structure is very vulnerable, I played a crucial move to declare war against RedFish. Can you guess what I played? If you found g4, then congratulations. That pawn is well protected by my queen, and I'm going to invade the center with my pawn army. That's why we have knight c5 and g6 on the board. A few moves later, we have b5, and rook to c2 on the board. The rook aims to go to the king side for future attacks. That's why we have the first pawn exchanges on b5, followed by rook d2 to put more pressure on the center pawn. Rook d8 follows in the game, and then queen e2 to break through the position with e5 or f5, disrupting your pawn structure. g5 follows, as RedFish sacrifices a pawn out of frustration, trying to explode the chessboard with his aggression. The point is that if I dare to capture the pawn, the knight will move back to d7, attacking the pawn and also allowing the knight to swiftly march into the center. Playing h4 would be a very passive move, with no advantages for me, so I first played bishop b2, then g3. Because I wanted to join my bishop on this diagonal and bring my other rook into play, a few moves later, captures occurred on f4 and g5, and after g5, you can see that I'm opening up the queen's diagonal to infiltrate the king's position. The bishop came to c6, and after a couple of moves, queen h5 followed, with the tactic of attacking the knight and the f7 pawn simultaneously. That's why the bishop retreated to protect the pawn. If you haven't guessed my brilliant moves yet, I'm giving you a third chance. Try to pause the video here and figure out what brilliant move I played. If you find it, mark my words, you will be a grandmaster one day. The brilliant move is knight f5. If you found it, congratulations. If not, don't be discouraged. Let me provide you an amazing motivational quote. A person can break your heart and damage your pride, but never ever give them the power to break your spirit. The point is that if RedFish captures the knight, the square on d5 will be unguarded, allowing me to place my knight there, and knight f6 can arrive with a check. If black plays bishop g7 instead of knight f6 to protect that square, I can still consider knight f6 to attack both the pawn and the king. If you capture the knight, after the exchange, there will be a clear path for my queen to checkmate you. If you dare to consider king f8, it will again be game over, because I can capture the pawn with a check. When the king runs, I can capture the f5 pawn with the idea of playing f6, which is also protected by my knight, leading to a sweet endgame on the chessboard. After f6, the bishop will be paralyzed, and after queen e2, the pawn will be pinned, allowing me to capture the knight on e5. If the king goes to c7, I can play an amazing move that will shock you. Queen takes e5, shocks you, right? Because after the exchange, I can easily capture your queen, and this diagonal and file will be completely dominated by my rook and bishop. Even if you consider rook d6, it won't matter, because this position is completely winning for me. There will be no chances to defend. Alright. So, going back to the position, we discovered that capturing the knight on f5 is a very bad choice. That's why the king moved to h8, and I just captured the pawn on d6, attacking your pieces. Many players might think of capturing the knight with the bishop, asking, what will happen if I capture the knight? There will be no problems, right? No, fool. There will be many problems, because after I capture the pawn and g6 appears on the board threatening checkmate, you have to capture it with your f-pawn. Then, after queen h6, checkmate is unstoppable, literally unstoppable. Even playing bishop g7 won't matter, because rook f8 will follow, leading to checkmate in one move. If bishop c6 happens on the board to protect that square with the rook, rook f7 will arrive with the idea of capturing the h7 pawn. The game will be over again. So, going back to the position, we discovered that capturing the knight with the bishop is a very bad choice. That's why many players might think of knight c7, but it's also a bad choice. That's why black decided to capture the knight on d6 with his queen, and after the exchange occurred, I captured the knight. After the exchange, we have g6, and you can see that the bishop is protecting the pawn. As I taught you, g6 can lead to checkmate in a few moves because the rook file will be open. The queen on h6 can support like a bodyguard in WWE, and after the exchange, queen h6 happens, rook f8 will follow, and the bishop will move up, leading to rook f7 to checkmate on the h7 square. There is no way to defend it. RedFish resigned the game, waving the white flag, and I metaphorically burned RedFish's flag with my shoes as I won the game and the computer chess championship. I hope you enjoyed the game very much. If so, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Wishing you all the best. Bye bye, take care and see you soon.